Unprepared isn't scripted or edited. There are no redos, and when we screw up, it's going live. This works for our show, but it is no way to run your e-commerce business. Our partner Rewind is here to help. They will help you back up your Shopify store with automated backups of your most important data. Rewind should be the first app you install on your store to protect it from human error, misbehaving apps, or collaborators gone bad. It's like having your very own magic undo button. It's trusted by over 70,000 retailers, from side hustles to the biggest online stores like Gymshark, Gatorade, and Movement Watches. Best of all, if you reply to any of their welcome series and mention Unprepared, you can get your first month free. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Unprepared. I'm your host, Chase Clymer. Today, welcoming to the show, the CEO and founder of Shogun, Nick. How are you doing today?
Doing all right. How about yourself, Chase?
I'm doing fantastic. Just before this, like most of these videos, we were just reminiscing about, we'd always run into each other at the in-person events and we miss them. But this episode isn't going to be about how awesome the Shopify ecosystem is, even though it is. It's going to be about headless and, just things to consider about going headless. And I probably have one of the smarter guys in the entire industry about it. And we'll get into that a little bit more of why he definitely knows what he's talking about.
Thank you.
But Nick, let's start talking headless. What am I not considering? It's a giant buzzword. Let's just start talking headless.
Cool. Right on. First, maybe we should define it. That might be a good idea. Because I know it seems like there's a lot of confusion around what it is. So first, I'll attempt to explain like what headless is like to a developer, right? And specifically like headless content management. The idea of headless content management to a developer is give me your content, give me your images, give me your links, give me your text, your copywriting, whatever. I am going to store that content data and I'm going to write code to point to wherever it should go in a front-end experience, right? Whether that goes to a native mobile application, whether that goes to a smart TV application, whether that goes to a website, to a point of sale system, right? That's what headless is, right? Repository of data, and then developers are going to basically go, leverage APIs to put that content wherever, right? And I might have messed that up a little bit because I'm actually not an engineer, but let's talk about how headless is used in the context of e-commerce, right?
Perfect. That was my next question.
Cool. So the way that the people use the term in e-commerce quite a bit is to use a separate and special piece of technology for the front end of the website, right? The visual presentation layer, the part the shoppers can see when they actually go to the site, that is something different than the technology for the backend. The technology for the backend generally being an e-commerce platform like Shopify, BigCommerce, Salesforce Commerce Cloud, Adobe Magento, SAP Hybris, what have you, right? And then using something entirely other than those technologies for the front end, something specialized or multiple technologies for the front end. Now, a lot of people misconstrue headless and they say, oh, headless is PWA. Part of this PWA thing, that's what headless is. Nope, that's a flavor of headless, right? But headless can be a whole bunch of different things, right? You can have a BigCommerce backend and WordPress for your front end. Let's say that you're mostly content driven, mostly blog driven. You don't do too much transaction on your site. Maybe WordPress is a great front end option for you. BigCommerce on the back end. Let's say that you're on Salesforce Commerce Cloud. And you want an enterprise grade DXP digital experience platform like Adobe AEM for managing all your content, managing your experience, personalization, A/B testing, yada, yada. Again, Salesforce Commerce Cloud backend, Adobe AEM on top of it. That's another kind of headless, right? Or let's say, you want to do a progressive web application build for your front end. You could build a PWA, and we can get into what that is. You could do a PWA build for your front end, and you could use Shopify for your back end, or you could use Shogun front end, our new product, to cover all of, anyways, I don't need to pitch my product right away, but you could do a PWA type of build or, something else and use Shopify for your backend. But that's literally all it means. It just means to use a different piece of tech that is not the e-commerce platform for the front end. And have the platform or something else for the back end.
So there's something I want to highlight there that I hope the listeners or the watchers caught, which was you were saying that there's a one primary technology solution for one part of the website or the digital experience, and then there's another one for the other part, which means that you are now responsible for hiring and understanding two complex technologies, which is something a lot of brands don't realize. Is you have essentially 2x your technology expertise that you have to have in house, and by way of that, you may have to double the teams to manage them.
Mm, I would argue that both of these. I'd argue that there are pretty robust software solutions in the space that don't make it as intimidating.
Okay.
Obviously, platforms like Shopify, BigCommerce, Salesforce, Magento, they have really robust SaaS for backend, right? Sure, you still obviously have team members who need to learn how to use those software suites. But even for Headless, I think that part of the reason why people find Headless so scary is because one of the most popular versions of Headless builds are these PWA architectures, and those involve the stitching together of 6 different components, right? Now, what we've done with Shogun Frontend is we productized all 6 of those components together. We coupled all of them. And then we also took, web content management and experience management, low code, no code, drag and drop like site building or page building tooling. And we married the two of them into an experience platform. So essentially we built a head for the whole headless architecture.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I just know that our agency website is Headless. It's PWA on the front end.
Yeah,
On the back end, it's powered by Prismic for all the nerds out there.
sure.
But yeah, it is. Anytime we want something done, it's Mike is jumping into the code. Like there's no management really happening beyond like having a dev lead go in there and do the thing. So it's definitely it's fast. It's lightning fast. Like
Sure.
I haven't. We had it's crazy fast, but it is. You got to have a certain level of expertise there. So with Headless, there are solutions like Shogun, and then they're like doing the PWA thing. And I think that's what a lot of people out there are doing these days is going with the PWA solution. And I guess that would probably be more in line with my kind of rant about it's more work. Just want to point that out. you gotta understand it's a bit more work.
Sure.
Especially getting it up and running, setting up all the APIs and stuff. So you saw that as an issue, obviously a hole in the market, and so that's where you guys kind of came to the table with the Shogun front end. So anyone that's listening that's been in the Shopify space should recognize Shogun as like one of the number one page builders in the Shopify ecosystem. But you guys have taken it a step further. So now, obviously, you can pitch the product. Like, tell me who it's for and what it's good and what it's going to do and help me if PWA is not PWA, but like Headless is the direction we want to go.
Yeah, totally. So I can talk a little bit maybe and frame it for like what the inspiration for the product was, right? Shogun Page Builder, we got something like, I don't know, it was like 18,000 clients on it or something like that. If you rewind back to like summer 2019, we have a lot of larger clients using the Page Builder software. They started to make feature requests around the content management tooling and experience management tooling that was significantly more robust. Like, I don't know if you've ever played around with Shogun, played around with like cloning and syncing, right? That's like an example of where the feature set started to become more advanced. Now, why do people care about cloning and syncing on Page Builder? Well, they want a site for each locale that they operate in, is one example, right? One for France, one for Spain, one for Netherlands, and so on and so forth. Localization. That brings in new complexities with content management and storefront experience management, new workflows. It's a whole thing, right?
Yeah.
Another example for multi-site would be a company that has multiple brands, or that maybe has a main site and experimental site. So there's a multi-site. There's a multi-site thing going on. The second thing is I think that a lot of companies, they just like headless architecture because of the flexibility. Just give them the flexibility to choose specialized software for a specialized function.
Yep.
For a lot of companies, they just they want more when it comes, more flexibility for storefront experience. The templating languages that are used in Shogun Frontend, for example, are JSX and React. You can do a lot more experience-wise, with those languages than like an HTML templating language, right? So people just wanting to, to push more simply around experience, web content management, but still wanting to leverage platform on the back end like Shopify, like BigCommerce, Salesforce, Magento, etc. Um, the third driver, I would say, is performance, right? And this is where the whole PWA thing comes in. We noticed that a lot of clients started to, vocalize that they wish that their sites were a lot faster, because if you make your site faster, you reduce your bounce rate. You reduce your bounce rate, your conversion rate goes up, right? And so, as you have said, Chase, some of these clients, they started building PWA front ends as a version of Headless. But how do you build a PWA front end? It involves 6 different components. The first 2 are JavaScript frameworks. So you would need JavaScript engineers. You need to use, code the PWA with something like React.js or Vue.js. You need a server-side rendering framework in addition to that, like a Gatsby.js or a Next.js. Because you've gone headless, you have to set up your own CDN. So you'd have to use like a Netlify or a Vercel or Fastly, Akamai. You could use any of those. In addition to that, like you said, you guys use Prismic, right? If you want any modicum of content management control without having to dig into the code, you'd integrate a developer-based content management system like a Contentful or a Prismic or a Sanity. But for a lot of marketers or merchandisers, they're like, whoa, this is like a schema of data. This isn't a page builder. This isn't an experience manager. This is like different. Gets worse. In addition to that, you have to write middleware. You have to write this piece of software that sits at the API layer between your e-commerce platform backend like Shopify, right, and your PWA front end that draws up all the data, right, from the backend and the front end that it needs to know.
Oh, yeah.
Now, some of it has to be there right away, but you can't have it done, via an API call that causes page loads. You have to use fancy stuff like service workers. And here, I'm not an engineer. I'm getting out of my depth, right?
Yeah.
The last one, though, is actually a real pain in the butt. You have all these awesome apps like Klaviyo for email, Yotpo for reviews, Recharge for subscriptions. You want to keep those applications, right? But if you try to integrate them with your PWA the normal way, generating an API call, you're going to cancel out the page speed effect, right? So what you need to do is you have to write middleware for each one of those individual third-party applications. Now, again, massive headache, right? And even you said, hey, if you do something like this, you build something like this, you're going to need double the internal team, all this stuff. So what we did was we took all 6 of those components and we productized it. We just created it into performance-driven technology that we used to power our new digital experience platform. And so Shogun frontend, when you actually log in and get in there, what it looks like is an enterprise-grade e-commerce focused, super fancy page builder, right? Basically a mid-market enterprise DXP. It's like a super grown-up page builder. It has its own version of Prismic or Contentful in it, right? So that you can make changes in the CMS, have them ripple across hundreds of pages without having to dig into each one. And it has its own integrated development environment. So developers can go in, they can code reusable JSX-based drag and drop sections. So you have this codeless page builder thing going on, but the elements are completely custom. And the magic trick is that it automatically produces a React.js frontend that has no load time, without you having to think about those 6 different things that it takes to build a PWA.
That is fantastic. I'm sure that we're gonna get in there and experiment soon. I have 2 questions for you before we go.
Please.
Just from my nerdiness is one, sounds like you guys are solving sections everywhere before Shopify got around to it. Is that something that people can kind of figure out on your platform? And I guess that might be a very insider question for those that don't know what that means outside of the Shopify Partner Program.
I think that Sections Everywhere is going to be fantastic for Shopify's client base. Shopify has 1.5 million users to serve. I think that Sections Everywhere is going to be great, especially with the way that it's going to work with themes and apps. To be clear, Shogun Frontend, it's actually a mid-market enterprise solution. So you'd really want to be a business that you're doing millions in revenue, tens of millions in revenue, maybe even 100 million or more in revenue if you're going to consider this kind of a solution. If you're a business that Sections Everywhere is looking like it could meet your needs, you're going to stick with sections everywhere. Or honestly, we'd be honored to have you check out Shogun Page Builder, or you could use a mix of sections and Page Builder, right?
Mm-hmm.
Shogun front end, this is really for if you're at that next level where you're saying, no, I need advanced tooling for content management. I need advanced tooling for experience management, and I need the top level of performance. I want my site to have literally perceptively zero load time, and I'm going to hire an agency like your agency to, instead of doing a custom theme build, to go do a custom rebuild in Shogun front end. And what we've done for agencies like yours is we've made it as easy to implement a very robust headless solution with content management tooling and PWA output. We have made it as easy to do that as it is to build a custom Shopify theme. The difference is, instead of liquid HTML templating language, which you probably use with Shopify, you're using JSX and React.
Oh, this is super fun. I mean, I think that we could go on forever about this, but we try to keep these ones short. Nick, I can't thank you enough for coming on. If anyone's interested in learning more about Shogun, please check them out. We'll make sure there's some links in the description below. Any parting words?
Chase, it's always an honor to be invited to these chats. I remember meeting you in New York City, for Unite all those years ago, and yeah, just thanks for keeping in touch, and would be glad to come back anytime to chat more.
Awesome. Thank you so much.